He called her the love of his life, the mother of his unborn child. They had it all: a sprawling mansion, a circle of influential friends, and a future that sparkled with promise. But one night, at the most important party of his career, she felt sick. What he did next was unthinkable. He threw his pregnant wife out onto the street like trash for ruining his night. He thought he had all the power, all the money. What he didn't know was that the prenuptial agreement he'd forced her to sign without reading was a time bomb. And the next morning, she didn't just file for divorce. She sued him with a secret weapon that would unravel his entire empire and expose every last one of his dirty secrets. This is the story of how a thrown-out wife got the ultimate revenge. Olivia felt like she was floating through a dream, a beautiful, shimmering illusion she was terrified to wake from. Their home, a modernist masterpiece of glass and white stone perched in the Hollywood Hills, offered a panoramic view of the sprawling city below a glittering carpet of lights that seemed to bow at their feet. It was a long way from the quiet, book-filled apartment where she'd lived before Sebastian. Sebastian Hale was a man sculpted by ambition and polished by success. He was a titan in the world of tech startups, a visionary who had turned a single brilliant idea into a billion-dollar empire. He moved with an innate confidence that bordered on arrogance, his charming smile a disarming weapon he deployed with strategic precision. When he had first walked into the independent art gallery where Olivia was a curator, his energy had filled the space, eclipsing the carefully curated artworks. He hadn't just looked at the art. He had appraised it, his sharp gray eyes calculating its value, its potential, its story. Then those same eyes had landed on her. Their courtship had been a whirlwind, a dizzying montage of private jets to Paris for dinner, front row seats at Milan Fashion Week, and whispered promises under the stars on the deck of a yacht in Monaco. He had pursued her with the same relentless focus he applied to his business acquisitions. Olivia, a woman who found solace in the quiet narratives of paintings and the worn pages of classic novels, was swept away. He made her feel seen, cherished, like the most exquisite piece in his priceless collection. He'd insisted on a prenuptial agreement. "A formality, my love," he had assured her, his hand gently stroking her hair. "It's just something my lawyers and investors insist on. It's to protect the company, not us. Our story is forever." He'd slid a thick document bound in a sleek leather folder across his vast mahogany desk. Olivia, dizzy with love and trust, had barely glanced at the dense legalese. She saw only the man in front of her, the man who was promising her the world. She remembered her own lawyer, a cautious, bespectacled man named Mr. Abernathy, urging her to read it carefully. "These things can have teeth, Olivia," he'd warned. But Sebastian had laughed it off, calling Mr. Abernathy a glorified librarian and whisking her away to choose a wedding venue. So she signed where Sebastian's manicured finger pointed her signature, a delicate swirl of ink that sealed her fate. Now, 6 months into their marriage, Olivia was pregnant. The news had initially thrilled Sebastian. "A Hale heir," he had boomed, popping a vintage bottle of champagne. "He'll be born into greatness." He immediately began planning the nursery, hiring the most sought-after interior designer to create a room fit for a prince. He talked about legacy, about dynasty, about the son who would one day inherit his empire. For Olivia, however, the pregnancy was a more intimate, more profound experience. It was the flutter of life within her, a secret conversation between her and her child. But as the months wore on, a subtle shift occurred. The morning sickness, the fatigue, the myriad discomforts of pregnancy were inconveniences that disrupted Sebastian's perfectly curated life. He was patient at first, but his patience had the thin, brittle quality of fine china. Her exhaustion was a mood, her nausea an overreaction. He hated disruptions, and her pregnancy was proving to be one long, unpredictable disruption. The party was to be Sebastian's magnum opus. He had just secured a landmark merger with a rival tech firm, a deal that would cement his place as the undisputed king of the industry. This party was not just a celebration, it was a coronation. Everyone who was anyone would be there: tech billionaires, venture capitalists, movie stars, political figures. The guest list was a testament to his power. For weeks, the house had been in a state of controlled chaos. Event planners, florists, and caterers moved like a well-oiled army, all under Sebastian's exacting command. He was obsessed with every detail, from the exact shade of the orchids to the vintage of the wine. "You have to be perfect tonight, Liv," he'd told her that morning, his hands on her shoulders, his gaze intense. She was 7 months pregnant now, her body feeling heavy and unfamiliar. The designer gown he had chosen for her, a column of shimmering silver silk, felt tight and restrictive. "I'm so tired, Seb," she'd confessed, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "I don't know if I can stand for hours." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nonsense. You look stunning. You're my queen. You just need to be by my side smiling. That's all. Let everyone see how perfect our life is." It wasn't a request. It was a directive. Her role was simple: to be the beautiful, adoring, and now visibly pregnant wife of Sebastian Hale. She was the final perfect accessory for his perfect evening. As she stood before the mirror that evening, Olivia felt a chill despite the warmth of the house. The woman staring back at her was a stranger in a borrowed life. The silver dress clung to her, a beautiful cage. The diamond necklace, a gift from Sebastian, felt heavy like a collar. Outside, the first limousines were beginning to snake their way up the long, winding driveway. The orchestra was tuning up. The curtain was about to rise on Sebastian's greatest performance, and she was his unwilling co-star. A wave of nausea, sharp and sudden, washed over her. She gripped the edge of the marble vanity, breathing deeply, and prayed she could make it through the night without ruining his perfect party. The party was a symphony of power and excess. Champagne flowed from a sculpted ice luge, a string quartet played softly in the background, and the air buzzed with the low hum of influential conversations. Sebastian was in his element, gliding through the crowd with a glass of whiskey in hand, his laughter booming, his hand always possessively on the small of Olivia's back. He introduced her with a flourish, "And this is my beautiful wife, Olivia, carrying the next Hale genius." Each introduction felt like a performance, and with each smile she offered a piece of her chipped away. Olivia felt like she was underwater. The cacophony of voices, the clinking of glasses, and the overpowering scent of 1,000 orchids made her head spin. The baby was restless, kicking and turning within her as if sensing her distress. She tried to focus on the conversations, to feign interest in stock options and IPOs, but a persistent, cloying nausea was rising in her throat. She needed air. She needed to escape the suffocating perfection of it all. She found a momentary reprieve on a deserted corner of the terrace, the cool night air a blessed relief on her flushed skin. The city lights below seemed to mock her, a sea of indifferent stars. She leaned against the cool glass balustrade, closing her eyes, trying to breathe through the dizzy spell. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." Sebastian's voice, sharp with irritation, cut through her fragile peace. "What are you doing out here sulking? Robert Croft is here. The Robert Croft. I want him to see you. I want him to see us." "I just needed a minute, Seb," she murmured, her voice weak. "I don't feel well." "You're always not feeling well." He snapped, his voice low and menacing. He glanced back toward the glass doors to ensure no one was watching. "This is the most important night of my career, Olivia. I need you to pull yourself together. Go fix your makeup and get back in there. Now." The command was icy, leaving no room for argument. He turned and strode back into the party without a backward glance. Fighting back tears, Olivia made her way to the downstairs powder room. The reflection that greeted her was ghastly. Her face was pale, a fine sheen of sweat on her brow, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. As she fumbled in her clutch for her lipstick, a violent wave of nausea seized her. She barely made it to the toilet before she was sick, the elegant gown bunching around her as she retched. She was still kneeling on the cold marble floor, trembling and crying, when the door swung open. A woman, her face a mask of polite concern, gasped, "Oh, my dear, are you all right?" It was Penelope Vance, the wife of one of Sebastian's biggest investors. Humiliation washed over Olivia hot and prickly. Before she could stammer a reply, Penelope was gone, presumably to find help. Moments later, Sebastian burst into the room, his face a thundercloud of pure fury. He slammed the door shut behind him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. "Penelope Vance just told me my pregnant wife is puking her guts out in the bathroom. Do you have any idea how that looks?" "I couldn't help it," Olivia sobbed, trying to push herself up. "I'm sick, Sebastian." "You're not sick, you're pathetic." He spat, his handsome face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You are ruining everything. My night, my celebration, everything I've worked for, and you're in here making a scene." "That's not true, isn't it?" He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her skin, and hauled her to her feet. "You knew what tonight meant to me. All you had to do was stand there and look pretty. But you couldn't even do that. You're weak, a liability." The cruelty in his voice was a physical blow. She stared at him, at this man she had loved, and saw a complete stranger, a monster hiding behind a charming facade. "Get out!" He snarled, his eyes cold and hard as granite. "What?" she whispered, her heart stopping. "Get out of my house!" He roared, his voice echoing in the small, opulent room. He shoved her towards the door. "I don't want to see your face again. You are an embarrassment. You and that thing inside you. You've ruined my party." He dragged her from the powder room, through a service corridor, and towards a side exit away from the prying eyes of his guests. The cold night air hit her like a slap in the face. He pushed her out the door and onto the manicured lawn. "My purse, my phone," she stammered, shivering in the thin silk dress. "I'll have one of the staff send your things to a hotel," he said dismissively. "Don't come back. I'll have my lawyer contact yours." He slammed the door, the click of the lock echoing the shattering of her world. Olivia stood there alone in the darkness, the faint sounds of the party of his triumph drifting from the house. She was 7 months pregnant, in a gown and heels, with nothing. He had thrown her out. He had thrown out his pregnant wife for ruining his party. The beautiful dream had become a waking nightmare. Trembling, heartbroken, and utterly alone, she started to walk down the long, dark driveway, each step taking her further away from the gilded cage she had called home. The descent from the Hollywood Hills was a journey through the circles of hell. Each step on the cold, hard asphalt was a fresh agony, her designer heels, once a symbol of glamour, now instruments of torture. The silver silk of her gown offered no protection against the creeping night chill that seeped into her bones. Cars, sleek and expensive, occasionally glided past their occupants, oblivious to the lone, shivering figure on the side of the road, a ghost at the feast. No one stopped. No one even slowed down. In this city of beautiful facades, a discarded woman was just part of the scenery. Olivia's mind was a maelstrom of shock and disbelief. Sebastian's words echoed in her head, each syllable a fresh laceration on her already broken heart. Pathetic. Weak, a liability, get out of my house. He hadn't just been angry, he had been disgusted. He had looked at her, at his pregnant wife, with pure contempt. The love she thought they shared, the future she believed they were building, had all been a lie, a carefully constructed illusion for his benefit. She was a prop, and she had just missed her cue. Tears streamed down her face, blurring the glittering city lights into a cruel, mocking tapestry. She thought of the baby, her baby, and a primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her grief. She was homeless, penniless, and responsible for another life. Her hand instinctively went to her belly, a protective gesture. "It's okay," she whispered to the unhearing child within her. "We'll be okay." It was a promise she had no idea how to keep. After what felt like an eternity, she reached the bottom of the hill and stumbled into the comparative brightness of Sunset Boulevard. The sudden onslaught of noise and neon was jarring. She was an apparition in her shimmering gown amidst the late-night denizens of the city, tourists, hustlers, dreamers. She saw a payphone, a relic from another era, and a new wave of despair washed over her. She had no money, no phone, no way to call for help. She thought of her parents retired and living a quiet life in Oregon. Calling them would mean admitting the spectacular failure of her marriage, shattering their image of her happy, successful life. The shame was a physical weight. Then a name surfaced from the fog of her panic: Chloe. Chloe Peterson had been her best friend since college. A fiercely independent journalist who wrote scathing investigative pieces, Chloe had been skeptical of Sebastian from the start. "He collects beautiful things, Liv," she had warned. "Make sure you're not just the latest acquisition." Olivia had dismissed her concerns as cynicism, but Chloe's words now rang with prophetic clarity. Chloe lived in a small, slightly chaotic bungalow in Venice Beach, a world away from the sterile opulence of Sebastian's mansion. Finding her way to Venice was another ordeal. She tried to hail a cab, but the drivers took one look at her disheveled state and sped past. Finally, a kind-faced bus driver, seeing her distress, let her ride for free. The journey was long and surreal. She sat huddled in the back, avoiding the curious stares of the other passengers, a fallen princess in a public carriage. When she finally stood before Chloe's front door, it was nearly 3 a.m. The porch light was on, illuminating a collection of potted succulents and a faded welcome mat. Olivia's hand trembled as she raised it to knock. She felt like a refugee seeking asylum. The door was thrown open almost immediately. Chloe stood there in worn-out pajamas, her red hair a messy bun on top of her head, her face etched with concern. She had clearly been waiting up. "Oh, Liv." She breathed, her voice thick with sleep and worry. The sight of her friend, battered but safe, was all it took for Chloe's journalistic composure to crumble. She pulled Olivia into a fierce hug. It was in the safety of Chloe's arms that Olivia's own control finally shattered completely. She clung to her friend and sobbed great, heaving, body-racking sobs that carried all the pain, humiliation, and terror of the night. Chloe just held her, murmuring soothing words, stroking her hair as she guided her inside and onto the worn, comfortable sofa. "I got a text," Chloe said softly after Olivia's sobs had subsided into exhausted shudders. "From a number I didn't recognize. It just said Olivia's things will be delivered to a hotel. Please retrieve them. She is no longer welcome at the residence." It had your hotel details. "I've been calling you non-stop. I was about to call the police." Olivia stared at her. A text. Not even a call. A curt, impersonal message sent by an assistant disposing of her like an unwanted piece of furniture. The final casual cruelty of it reignited a spark of anger amidst the embers of her grief. Chloe bustled around making tea, finding a warm blanket, her practical energy a comforting balm. She didn't press for details, simply creating a space of quiet safety. She brought a warm, damp cloth and gently wiped the tear tracks and smudged mascara from Olivia's face. "He threw me out, Chloe," Olivia whispered, her voice raw. "In front of everyone. He said I ruined his party." Chloe's eyes, usually so full of wry humor, hardened. "That bastard," she said, her voice a low growl. "That narcissistic, empty-suited piece of garbage." Olivia curled up on the sofa, pulling the blanket around her. The warmth was a stark contrast to the icy coldness that had enveloped her for hours. In Chloe's cluttered, lived-in home, surrounded by books and the scent of brewing tea, Olivia felt the first faint glimmer of something she hadn't felt all night. Safety. The battle was far from over, but she was no longer alone in the dark. The long walk was over. Now the fight was about to begin. The next morning, Olivia woke to the smell of coffee and the gentle light of the sun filtering through the blinds of Chloe's living room. For a fleeting, merciful moment, she didn't remember. She was just Olivia, warm and safe on a friend's couch. Then the events of the previous night crashed down on her with the force of a physical blow. The party, Sebastian's rage, the cold, lonely walk, the raw humiliation. She curled into a tighter ball, pulling the blanket over her head as if to hide from the reality of her new life. Chloe found her like that, a miserable heap on the sofa. She placed a mug of coffee on the coaster beside her and sat on the floor, her expression a mixture of righteous fury and deep empathy. I went to the hotel this morning, Chloe said softly. I picked up your things. She gestured to a small pile of designer luggage stacked neatly by the door. He packed everything. It seems he was quite thorough. The finality of it was staggering. In a matter of hours, her entire life with Sebastian had been packed into a few suitcases and dismissed. He really meant it, Olivia whispered, her voice muffled by the blanket. He's done with me. Good. Chloe said, her tone sharp. You're done with him too, Liv. You just don't know it yet. He didn't just throw you out. He abandoned his pregnant wife. That's not just cruel, it's a special kind of evil. Olivia finally sat up, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes swollen. What am I going to do, Chloe? I have nothing. He controlled everything, the bank accounts, the house, the cars. I have no money, no home. I signed a prenup. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. The document she had signed so blithely now felt like a death sentence to any hope of a fair future. I know you did, Chloe said, her gaze steady. And you're going to use it to burn his whole world down. Olivia stared at her. What are you talking about? He told me it was to protect his company. He said his lawyers made sure he would keep everything if this happened. And you believed him? Chloe asked, a hint of her old skeptical self returning. Liv, you need to stop thinking about the man you thought you married and start thinking about the man who threw you out on the street. Do you have a copy of that prenup? Olivia's mind, foggy with grief, slowly started to work. My lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, he told me to keep a copy. It's in a safe deposit box. The key is in my jewelry box. She gestured towards the luggage. An hour later, the thick, leather-bound document lay on Chloe's coffee table. It looked just as intimidating as it had on Sebastian's desk. Chloe Ever, the investigative journalist, began to read, her brow furrowed in concentration. Olivia paced the small living room, her anxiety mounting with every rustle of a page. Okay, standard stuff here, Chloe muttered, scanning the first few pages. Waiver of spousal support. Division of assets acquired before the marriage. Blah, blah, he keeps the house, the cars, the art collection. She paused, her finger tracing a line of text. Hold on, wait a minute. She looked up at Olivia, a strange light in her eyes. Who is Ms. Anya Sharma? Olivia frowned. I have no idea. I've never heard that name before. Well, Chloe said, a slow smile spreading across her face. According to this, in the event of a dissolution of the marriage, all legal correspondence is to be directed exclusively to one Ms. Anya Sharma, and it lists an address for a law firm downtown. A very, very expensive-looking law firm. But Sebastian's lawyer is a man named Gregory Finch, Olivia said, confused. He handled the prenup. Exactly, Chloe said, her eyes gleaming. And your old lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, is listed here as your representative at the time of signing. But this clause about Ms. Sharma, this is different. Liv, I think your glorified librarian of a lawyer might have been smarter than Sebastian gave him credit for. Suddenly a memory surfaced in Olivia's mind. A brief, hurried conversation with Mr. Abernathy right after she'd told him she was going to sign the prenup against his advice. He had looked disappointed but resigned. Very well, Olivia, he had said with a sigh. If you insist on signing it, there is one small non-negotiable amendment I have made. It's a standard protective clause. Mr. Hale's lawyers have already agreed to it. It's just a procedural matter. Sebastian had been impatient that day, eager to get to a celebratory lunch, and had waved it off, telling his own lawyer to just agree to whatever the old man wants, so we can get this over with. Could her timid, cautious lawyer have slipped in a Trojan horse? We need to see her, Chloe said, her voice firm with purpose. Today. The offices of Sharma and Associates were the epitome of quiet, formidable power. Located on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper, the reception area was a minimalist expanse of steel and glass, with a single stunning abstract painting dominating one wall. The air was still, and smelled faintly of expensive leather and success. They were ushered into a corner office with a view that rivaled the one from Sebastian's mansion. A woman rose from behind a large, uncluttered desk to greet them. She was in her late 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe but elegant chignon. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and missed nothing. This was Ms. Anya Sharma. "Mrs. Hale," she said, her voice calm and measured. She did not offer a smile, but her handshake was firm. "I've been expecting you." Olivia, holding the prenup, felt a tremor of hope. "You have—" "Mr. Abernathy informed me of the circumstances of your marriage and the signing of this document," Ms. Sharma explained, gesturing for them to sit. "He was concerned. He engaged my firm on a contingency basis on your behalf should my services ever be required. A most unorthodox, but as it turns out, prudent arrangement." She took the document from Olivia and spread it on her desk. Mr. Hale and his legal team, in their arrogance, saw this agreement as a shield to protect his assets. They were so focused on the major clauses, the house, the company stock, that they paid little attention to the finer print, the procedural amendments that Mr. Abernathy insisted upon. Ms. Sharma tapped a long, elegant finger on a specific clause. This, for example, the infidelity penalty clause. It's written in dense, almost impenetrable legalese, but what it essentially states is that if the dissolution of the marriage is proven to be a result of moral turpitude, specifically adultery on Mr. Hale's part, then the division of assets acquired during the marriage shifts dramatically to a 70-30 split in your favor. Olivia's jaw dropped. "But I have no proof he's been unfaithful." Anya Sharma looked at her, and for the first time a ghost of a smile touched her lips. "My dear Mrs. Hale," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "men like Sebastian Hale believe they are invincible. They believe rules are for other people. They get sloppy. My job is to find where he has been sloppy, and I assure you I am very, very good at my job." She then pointed to another section. "And this, the legacy clause, another of Mr. Abernathy's little gifts. It states that any offspring of the union is entitled to a substantial trust fund to be managed not by Mr. Hale but by an independent third-party trustee, namely you, and funded by a significant percentage of his company's annual profits until the child reaches the age of 25. He was so excited about his Hale heir that he signed off on it without considering the implications if he were no longer in control." Olivia felt lightheaded. This wasn't just a prenup, it was a weapon. A secret ticking time bomb that her quiet, unassuming lawyer had planted right under Sebastian's arrogant nose. "So what happens now?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and newfound strength. Miss Sharma leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes fixed on Olivia. "Now," she said, her voice as cool and hard as steel, "we don't just file for divorce. We sue him. We sue him for breach of contract, for wrongful termination of the marital agreement, and for the full and immediate enforcement of every single clause in this document. By tomorrow morning, Sebastian Hale will learn that the woman he threw out in the cold is about to become the most expensive mistake of his life." The lawsuit landed on Sebastian Hale's mahogany desk with a quiet thud that belied the explosion it was about to cause in his meticulously ordered world. His personal assistant, a young man with a perpetually nervous expression, had placed it there with trembling hands, muttering something about a courier from a law firm, and then scurried away as if the envelope itself were radioactive. Sebastian, still basking in the afterglow of his triumphant party, and the glowing press coverage that followed, picked it up with an air of detached annoyance. He assumed it was some groveling letter from Olivia's lawyer, the mousy Mr. Abernathy, probably begging for a modest settlement. He slit the envelope open with a silver letter opener, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. He had already instructed his own lawyer, Gregory Finch, to draw up the divorce papers, offering a generous one-time payment that was in reality an insultingly small fraction of his wealth, just enough to make her go away quietly. As he began to read, the smirk faltered, his brow furrowed, his knuckles gripping the heavy vellum paper turned white. This was not a plea for scraps from his table. This was a declaration of war, breach of contract, wrongful termination of the marital agreement, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The legal jargon was dense, but the message was brutally clear. And then he saw the name of the plaintiff's counsel, Anya Sharma and Associates. A chill, unfamiliar and unpleasant snaked its way up his spine. He knew the name. Everyone in his world knew the name. Anya Sharma was not a lawyer you hired for a quiet settlement. She was a shark, a corporate assassin in a tailored suit renowned for dismantling arrogant men just like him. He immediately buzzed his lawyer. "Finch, get in my office, now!" Gregory Finch, a portly man whose confidence was directly proportional to his client's net worth, bustled in moments later, a placating smile on his face. "Sebastian, good morning. I was just about to call you. The divorce papers are ready to—" "Forget the papers," Sebastian snarled, throwing the lawsuit across the desk. "What the hell is this?" Finch picked up the document, his smile dissolving as he read. He paled. "Anya Sharma?" He squeaked, his voice losing several octaves. How did she get Anya Sharma?" "That's what I'm paying you to find out," Sebastian roared, slamming his fist on the desk. "And what is this nonsense about an infidelity penalty clause and a legacy clause? I've never heard of such a thing. You told me that Prenup was ironclad. You told me she couldn't touch me." Finch, now sweating profusely, scrambled to his own copy of the prenuptial agreement, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages. He found the clauses hidden deep within the boilerplate language camouflaged by legalistic subsections. He remembered waving them through, dismissing them as procedural fluff from Olivia's geriatric lawyer. A small, non-negotiable amendment, Abernathy had called it, in their haste to close the deal, in their supreme confidence that they held all the cards they had been played. "It seems Mr. Abernathy was more cunning than we anticipated," Finch stammered. "These clauses, they are problematic." "Problematic?" Sebastian laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "A 70-30 split if she can prove I cheated a trust fund for the kid that bleeds my company's profits. It's more than problematic, you idiot. It's a catastrophe." He began to pace the office like a caged panther. "She has no proof of anything. It's her word against mine. Who are they going to believe, me or the hysterical pregnant woman I had to remove from my home?" His arrogance, though shaken, was beginning to reassert itself. He was Sebastian Hale. His image was impeccable, his power absolute. His confidence was what led him to agree to the initial meeting against Finch's increasingly frantic advice. "Let me meet with her," he had told Finch. "Let me meet with this Sharma woman and my estranged wife. I'll handle this. I will remind Olivia who she is dealing with." The meeting took place in the sterile, intimidating conference room of Sharma and Associates. It was a world away from Sebastian's opulent office. There was no art, no plush carpeting, just a long, polished table and an unnerving silence. Olivia sat beside Anya Sharma, her posture straight, her hands clasped calmly in her lap. She looked different. The soft, accommodating woman he had married was gone. In her place was a stranger with a quiet, unnerving resolve in her eyes. The sight of her so composed, so defiant, fanned the flames of his anger. "Olivia." Sebastian began, his voice a low, condescending purr. "This is absurd. You and I both know our marriage is over. Let's not make this ugly. I am prepared to be very generous." "My client is not interested in your generosity, Mr. Hale." Anya Sharma interjected, her voice cutting through his like a shard of ice. "She is interested in what is rightfully hers, according to the contract you signed." Sebastian turned his glare on Sharma. "A contract that was signed under false pretenses. This is nothing but a shakedown." "Is it?" Ms. Sharma slid a slim, glossy photograph across the table. It landed directly in front of Sebastian. It was a picture of him. He was at a hotel bar, the one at the Bel Air, from about 3 months ago. His arm was wrapped around a stunning blonde, his head bent close to hers, his expression unguarded and intimate. He remembered the woman, a model he'd met at a fundraiser. He'd told Olivia he was in a late-night board meeting. His blood ran cold. "Where did you get this?" Let's just say my firm employs some very talented investigators, Mr. Hale, Sharma said smoothly. Men who create empires often leave a trail of secrets. We've found that trail. The woman's name is Katerina Petrov, a model. You've been seeing her for the last 6 months. We have receipts from hotels in New York, London, and here in L.A. We have testimony from drivers. We have a copy of the lease for the apartment you pay for in Beverly Hills. She slid another folder across the table. It was thick. This is just a sample of the evidence we have collected in the last 48 hours. Shall I continue? Sebastian stared at the photograph, then at Olivia. Her face was impassive, but he saw a flicker of pain in her eyes, and for the first time, a sliver of genuine fear pierced his armor of arrogance. He had catastrophically underestimated her. He had underestimated the quiet old lawyer, and he had most certainly underestimated the woman sitting across from him. The infidelity clause has been triggered, Mr. Hale. Sharma continued, her voice relentless. We will be petitioning the court for an immediate 70% share of all assets acquired during your marriage. This includes appreciation of your company's stock value, which since your recent merger is substantial. Gregory Finch looked like he was about to faint. And then there is the matter of the legacy clause. Sharma added, her tone becoming even colder. Given your recent behavior, specifically abandoning your pregnant wife and rendering her homeless, we will be arguing that you are an unfit guardian. We will petition for full sole custody for Olivia and for the immediate establishment and funding of the trust as stipulated in the agreement. Sebastian was speechless. His world, so carefully constructed, so flawlessly managed, was crumbling around him. The power, the control, it was all slipping through his fingers. He looked at Olivia, truly looked at her, and saw not the weak, pathetic woman he had cast out, but the architect of his ruin. The secret prenup, the weapon he hadn't even known existed, was now aimed directly at his heart, and Anya Sharma had her finger on the trigger. His arrogance had built his kingdom, and now it was about to bring it all crashing down. The lawsuit was a declaration of war. The ensuing legal battle was trench warfare. Sebastian, humbled but not yet broken, marshaled his resources. He fired the hapless Gregory Finch and hired a notoriously aggressive legal team from a top-tier firm, men who specialized in making problems and people disappear. His strategy was simple and brutal. Bury Olivia and Anya Sharma in an avalanche of motions, delays, and legal minutiae. He would drain their resources and their will to fight. He would paint Olivia as an unstable, gold-digging opportunist and himself as the wronged, benevolent husband. The press, once his adoring audience, became the new battleground. Anonymous sources, clearly on Sebastian's payroll, began leaking stories to gossip columns and financial news outlets. Olivia was portrayed as mentally fragile, her pregnancy-related sickness exaggerated into a narrative of full-blown hysteria. They whispered that she had been cheating, that the baby might not even be his. It was a classic smear campaign designed to erode her credibility and public sympathy. But Sebastian had made another critical miscalculation. He assumed Olivia would crumble under the public pressure. He didn't understand that the woman he had thrown out into the night had died on that cold pavement. A new Olivia had been forged in that moment, an Olivia who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for her child. Furthermore, he had underestimated Anya Sharma's foresight and Chloe Peterson's tenacity. Chloe, using her journalistic skills and network of contacts, fought fire with fire. She started a blog, The Hale Truth, where she systematically and calmly dismantled the lies being spread about her friend. She published authenticated timelines, refuted anonymous smears with on-the-record statements from character witnesses, and presented a counter-narrative, that of a brilliant, powerful man using his immense resources to crush the wife he had publicly humiliated. The blog went viral, and the tide of public opinion, initially swayed by Sebastian's PR machine, began to turn. Meanwhile, Anya Sharma's team of investigators, led by a discreet but relentless man named Gideon, continued to dig. They weren't just looking for more evidence of infidelity. They were following the money. The secret apartment he kept for Katerina Petrov was just the beginning. They discovered a web of shell corporations and offshore accounts created to hide assets not just from Olivia, but from his business partners and the IRS. The real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Gideon, while investigating the financials of the merger that had been the catalyst for the fateful party, noticed some irregularities. There were several large unsubstantiated payments made to a consulting firm just weeks before the deal was announced. The firm was a ghost, a shell with no employees and no history. With some more digging, they uncovered the truth. Sebastian hadn't outmaneuvered his rival. He had bought them off with a massive illegal kickback, essentially committing corporate fraud. The merger, the source of his ultimate triumph, was built on a foundation of criminality. This discovery changed everything. It was no longer just a messy divorce. It was a potential federal case. Anya Sharma knew she held a nuclear option. She requested another meeting, this time on her turf. Sebastian arrived looking haggard. The strain of the legal battle and the constant media scrutiny was taking its toll. The golden boy of tech was looking tarnished. He still projected an air of defiance, but the easy confidence was gone, replaced by a tense, brittle anger. This time there were no pleasantries. Anya Sharma didn't even offer him a seat. She simply laid a single piece of paper on the conference table. It was a bank statement showing a wire transfer of $10 million from one of Sebastian's offshore accounts to the ghost consulting firm. "We know, Mr. Hale," Sharma said, her voice devoid of emotion. "We know about the kickback. We know you defrauded your shareholders. We know you committed wire fraud. The evidence is irrefutable and currently in a very safe place." Sebastian stared at the paper, his face turning the color of ash. He finally understood. He was completely and utterly trapped. "What do you want?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "My client has new terms," Sharma said. "The prenup is no longer the template. It's the starting point." Olivia, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but unshakable. "I want the house, Sebastian. The one you threw me out of. I want it free and clear for me and for my child. I want full sole custody. You will have supervised visitation rights twice a month at my discretion. You will not contest this." She paused, taking a deep breath. "The trust for the child as outlined in the legacy clause will be funded immediately, not with a percentage of profits, but with a lump sum of $100 million in non-company assets. That money will be placed in a trust that you will have no access to and no control over ever." Sebastian looked like he was going to be sick. $100 million? That's insane." "Is it?" Olivia countered, her eyes flashing with a fire he'd never seen. "You were willing to spend $10 million on an illegal kickback to secure your legacy. Consider this a premium on ensuring the legacy of your child, the one you were so eager to create and so quick to discard." "And finally," Anya Sharma added, "my client wants one other thing, your reputation. You built your empire on your public image, on the myth of Sebastian Hale. Now that myth is going to die." She slid a prepared statement across the table. "You will release this to the press today. It will state that you are stepping down as CEO of your company, effective immediately for personal and health reasons. It will include a full public apology to Olivia, admitting to your infidelity and to your unconscionable behavior on the night of the party. You will take full responsibility. You will not spin it. You will not mitigate it. You will confess." Sebastian looked from the statement to Olivia, a desperate, pleading look in his eyes. It was the look of a king being asked to sign his own abdication treaty. "If you refuse," Sharma said, her voice dropping to a deadly quiet, "this file," she tapped the folder containing the evidence of his fraud, "goes directly to the U.S. Attorney's Office and to the board of your company. You won't just lose your money, Mr. Hale. You will lose your company, your partners will sue you, and you will very likely go to prison." The choice was stark. Financial ruin and public humiliation, or total annihilation and a prison sentence. The unraveling was complete. The invincible man had been brought to his knees, not by a rival corporation or a market crash, but by the wife he had deemed worthless, and a secret clause in a document he hadn't bothered to read. He picked up the pen, his hand shaking, and signed his name to the statement surrendering his kingdom. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Sebastian Hale's public apology and sudden resignation sent shockwaves through the tech world and the financial markets. The carefully crafted narrative of the visionary genius collapsed overnight, replaced by the sordid, undeniable truth of the cheating husband and corporate fraudster. His carefully selected board of directors, faced with the evidence Anya Sharma had discreetly provided them, swiftly and silently ousted him, eager to distance the company from his toxicity. His name, once a symbol of innovation and success, became a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. For Olivia, victory was not a jubilant celebration. It was a quiet, profound sense of release. She walked back into the house in the Hollywood Hills not as a wife or a possession, but as its owner. The cavernous rooms, once symbols of her gilded cage, now felt different. They were hers to fill with new memories, with light, with life. The first thing she did was hire a new team of decorators to erase every last trace of Sebastian's cold, sterile aesthetic. The gray walls were painted in warm, soft colors. The severe modernist furniture was replaced with comfortable, inviting pieces. The house began to feel like a home. 2 months later, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Sophie Grace. Holding her daughter for the first time, Olivia felt a love so fierce and pure it eclipsed all the pain and betrayal she had endured. This tiny, perfect human was the reason for her fight, the purpose that had emerged from the wreckage of her old life. Sophie was her legacy, not Sebastian's. Life found a new, peaceful rhythm. Olivia, with the immense resources now at her disposal, didn't retreat into a life of idle luxury. She rediscovered the woman she had been before Sebastian, the art lover, the reader, the quiet curator. She established the Sophie Grace Foundation, a charitable organization dedicated to supporting single mothers and victims of domestic abuse. She used her story, her platform, and her money to help women who had been left with nothing, women who didn't have a secret prenup or a brilliant lawyer to save them. She became a protector, an advocate, a source of hope. Chloe remained her steadfast friend, a constant presence in her and Sophie's life. They would often sit on the terrace, the same terrace where Olivia had once sought refuge from Sebastian's party, watching Sophie play on the lawn, the city lights twinkling below them. "Do you ever hear from him?" Chloe asked one evening, sipping a glass of wine. Olivia shook her head. "Anya handles the visitation arrangements through his lawyers. He sees Sophie as agreed. It's civil, distant. He looks smaller somehow. The power was his lifeblood. Without it, he's just a hollow man." Sebastian had faded into obscurity. He avoided prison by cooperating with the federal investigation into his merger, but his career was over. His fortune decimated, his reputation irreparable. He was a ghost in the city he once ruled. Olivia looked out at the horizon where the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. She thought of the woman in the silver dress shivering and alone on the side of a dark road. It felt like a lifetime ago, a scene from someone else's story. She was no longer that woman. She had walked through fire and emerged not scorched, but stronger, forged into something new and unbreakable. She was a mother, a philanthropist, a survivor. She had taken the ruins of her life and built an empire of her own, one founded not on arrogance and lies, but on resilience, compassion, and the unconditional love for her daughter. She had found her own perfect view, and it was more beautiful than any illusion Sebastian Hale could have ever offered. And there you have it, the incredible story of Olivia Hale. A story that proves that the deepest betrayals can sometimes lead to the greatest strengths. It's a reminder that no one should ever be underestimated, and that true power isn't about money or fame, it's about resilience, integrity, and fighting for what's right. If Olivia's journey from a discarded wife to an empowered phoenix resonated with you, please show your support. Hit that like button so we know you want more stories like this. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a story of ultimate revenge and rebirth. and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss another tale of justice and triumph. Thank you for listening.